specialized. They actually do perform particular functions, right? Like we can say talk about red blood cells that carry oxygen around our bodies in the blood. And the second thing is, red blood cells are unable to differentiate. Okay, now here comes the new concept of the stem cell. So we will talk about this stem cells. So what are stem cells? Stem cells differ from other cells in our body, obviously, as Anusha said, that it has some self-renewal property. So there are some common features of these stem cells in our body. First one is they are capable of dividing and renewing themselves for a long period of time. The stem cells provide new cells for the body as it grows and replace specialized cells that are damaged or lost. So they have this unique property which they can divide over and over again to produce new cells. Second is they are unspecialized because they divide and differentiate to give rise to different specialized cells. So this is the second property of the stem cells, that these are unspecialized cells. So they can change into other cell types and to make up our body. Okay. And third one, they can give rise to specialized cell types. This is basically the elaborated one. So this is the feature of the stem cells, and this is the reason that scientists are working on different ways to develop stem cells from other cells using genetic reprogramming techniques. Now these stem cells are the body's raw material, we can say, because as I have told that it is an unspecialized cell type, so we can say it to be the raw material of our body, because cells from which all other cells with specialized functions are generated. Now under the right conditions in the body or maybe in the laboratory, stem cells divide to form more cells called daughter cells. Okay, now the question comes, why these stem cells are important? Why okay, it's a natural phenomena, we have stem cells. As life goes on, it has immense impact on our life, but why this is so much important? Because these stem cells, if you see, okay, first let me show you. This is the cultured stem cell, and if you can see, the stem cells differentiate into different layers. See, ectoderm, which is the external layer, later it will form the neural portions. The endoderm, which is the internal layer, it will give rise to, for example, it will give rise to lungs. Mesoderm, which is the middle layer, it will give rise to heart, and also the mesoderm, the middle layer, which is give rise to bones. So basically it will help to differentiate into different specialized cells of our body, forming different organs of our body, ultimately forming a particular human being in case of us. So why these stem cells? Because it has immense venue, it can differentiate actually. So there are three main categories according in which actually stem cells are very, very important. Which are they? The first one is the basic research. You can use these stem cells depending on their properties of self-renewal, depending on their properties of unspecialization. You can use these cells for basic research, or you can use these cells for drug development, or even you can go for cell therapy, which is very common. Stem cell therapy, at least I guess you have heard about the stem cell therapies. So these are the main three wings in which we can work with these stem cells. Now the question comes, why these stem cells are so much important, that it has immense effects on our lives. So stem cells basically represent an exciting area in medicine because of their potential to regenerate and repair damaged tissues. Basically its properties. Some current therapies such as bone marrow transplantation already make use of stem cells and their potential for regeneration of damaged tissues, and other therapies that are under investigation involve transplanting stem cells into a damaged body part and directing them to grow and differentiate into healthy tissues. So this is the reason that the stem cell research or the area of stem cell is so much important in at least nowadays. So if we elaborate, we will see that this stem cell research help us to increase the understanding of how disease occurs. How? By watching stem cells mature into cells in bones, heart, muscles, nerves and other organs and tissues, researchers and doctors may better understand how disease and the conditions develop. So from observing the stem cell growth and development, we will be able to understand the reason or the basic reason behind a particular disease or a particular condition. Second, we can tell that it helps us to generate healthy cells which actually replace diseased cells. So this is basically these healthy cells to replace diseased cells. This actually gives us the idea or opens up a new venue of regenerative medicines. Now the stem cells that can be guided into becoming specific cells that can be used to regenerate and repair diseased or damaged tissues on people. Now people say who might benefit from stem cell therapies include with spinal cord injuries, type 1 diabetes, Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's disease. So there are and so on. So there are many diseases which can be cured by these regenerative medicines, by these stem cell therapies. Stem cells may have the potential to be grown to become new tissues for use in transplant and regenerative medicines. Researchers actually continuing to advance the work on stem cells and their applications in transplant and regenerative medicines. And last but not the least, it will help us to test new drugs for safety and its effectiveness. Before using an investigational drug in people, researchers can use some types of stem cells to test the drugs for safety and quality purpose. This type of testing will most likely first have a direct impact on drug development, first for say cardiac toxicity testing. New areas of study include the effectiveness of using human stem cells that have been programmed into tissue specific cells to test new drugs. For the testing of new drugs to be accurate, the cells must be programmed to acquire properties of the type of cells targeted by the drug. Now there are techniques to program the cells into specific cells continue to be studied. For instance, we can say that nerve cells could be generated to test a new drug for a nerve disease. Tests could show whether the new drug had any effect on the cells and whether the cells are harmed or not. So basically these undifferentiated stem cells, or we can say it's a blank, they are capable of developing into cells that serve numerous functions in different parts of our body, and they have an immense impact on basic research, medical section, both ways to develop new drugs and to detect diseased conditions also. Well, now there are some properties. It's not say properties. It's a particular feature of the stem cell. The stem cells, according to their potential to differentiate into other types of cell. So the researchers actually categorized these stem cells. Okay. So first one is the totipotent stem cell. So what is this totipotency? Totipotency means totipotent stem cell means the stem cells which can differentiate into all possible cell types. Okay, so totipotency is the blank one, the first one, from where the first cell, from where the each and every cell differentiates. So for example, you can say the first few cells that appear as the zygote that starts to divide, they are totipotent in nature. So I am repeating again that these stem cells, actually these categorization that I am talking about now, so this stem cell categorization was done depending on the potential of these cells to differentiate into other cell types, and the first one is the totipotent stem cell. So totipotent stem cell means that can differentiate into all possible cell types. Next one is the pluripotent one. So this pluripotent stem cells that can turn into almost any cell, almost, but not all. The cells from the early embryo, those are pluripotent in nature. Next one is the multipotent stem cells. See, okay, fine. Multipotent stem cells, these cells can differentiate into a closely related family of cells. Minded, only differentiate into a closely related family of cells. For example, we can say hematopoietic stem cells. So adult hematopoietic stem cells, for example, can become red and white blood cells or platelets. So they all belong to a same family or closely related family. Next one is the oligopotent. Means these can differentiate into few different cell types, like adult lymphoid or myeloid cells. They have this oligopotency. And last one is unipotent. So this can only produce cells of one kind, which is their own type. However, they are still stem cells because they can renew themselves, though they can differentiate into only their cell type, but though they have the property of self renewal, these unipotent cells are also called stem cells. Okay, and the example includes adult muscle stem cells. So basically, if you can see, the starting from the totipotency and up to unipotent, the potency of the stem cells, they are gradually decreasing, right? Totipotency, it has the ability to differentiate into any kind of cells, and we have ended with unipotent cell that has the ability to differentiate into only one kind of cell type, which is its own. But though it has the self renewal, all of these totipotent, pluripotent, multipotent, oligo and unipotent stem cells, all of them have the self renewal property, and that's why all of them are said to be the stem cells. But gradually their potency is decreasing, and depending on the decreasing potency, they are divided into different level. The best and the most readily understood example of a stem cell in humans is the fertilized egg, or you can say it a zygote. A zygote is a single cell that is formed by the union of a sperm and ovum, right? And once the single cell or these zygote starts dividing, it is known as the embryo. So this embryo, I have told, it has the totipotency. So one cell becomes 2, 2 becomes 4, 4 becomes 8, and 8 becomes 16, and so on, doubling rapidly until it ultimately grows into an entire sophisticated organism composed of many different kinds of specialized cells. And on the way, the potency of the stem cells gradually decreases because they are going towards much more specialized cell. They are going to become much more specialized cell from the unspecialized source. Okay. So, why the question may come that why these embryonic stem cells are said to be the pluripotent one, not the totipotent one, because these embryonic stem cells, they are considered to be pluripotent because they cannot become part of the extra embryonic membrane. When the embryo when develops, it actually the stem cells, embryonic stem cells, that is not the part of the extra embryonic membrane of the or the placenta. So embryonic stem cells are not said to be the totipotent one, but the pluripotent one. Well, this is the types of stem cells, or this is the categorization of stem cells depending on their potency to differentiate into more specialized cells. Now let's talk about some specific stem cells, right? So the first one, the type of stem cells, the first one include embryonic stem cells or ECS. The thousands of different cell types that make up our bodies all came from one single master builder cell called a pluripotent stem cell. Now, pluripotent stem cells can be thought of as blank states. I have mentioned it before, because of their ability to build any cell type in the body, like skin cells, brain cells, muscle cells, and so on. So, unlike tissues, stem cells, pluripotent stem cells are not limited to only becoming more of a certain tissues. Rather, these pluripotent stem cells primarily consists of embryonic stem cells, and they later on they differentiate. Now, from the, if you can see the picture, the fertilized egg from the very earliest stage of the pregnancy after the sperm. So, when after the embryo forms, around 3 to 5 days after this fertilization, the embryo takes the form of. Yes.
Ma'am, is the normal human cell is unipotent?
Normal human cell in terms of which cell? See, if you talk about heart cell, lung cells, okay, that is not the unipotent one. But from where these cells differentiate, the ultimate one is the not the unipotent one.
Okay, okay. But it divides and give rise to only one type of cell, that is called unipotent. No?
Yes. Okay, okay. You are asking. Okay, okay. Yes. If you say that in case of brain cells, liver cells, yes, those are unipotent one because they can differentiate into only a specialized kind of cell. So they are
okay, okay.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Where was I? Okay. So it actually after the blastocyst or these this is a ball of cells. Now the blastocyst contains stem cells and will later implant in the womb, and embryonic stem cells come from a blastocyst that is 4 to 5 days old. Okay, so what are different features of these embryonic stem cells? So that is derived from blastocyst of a 5 days old embryo, and this single cell zygote then starts to divide, forming 2 cells, 4 cells, 2, 4, 8, 16 cell stage, and so on. Now it forms the embryo. Now before the embryo implants in the uterus, this mass of around 150 to 200 cells is the blastocyst, from where these embryonic stem cells are derived. Now this blastocyst, if you can see the picture, it consists of 2 different parts, right? The outer cell mass that becomes the placenta, and the inner cell mass, the ICM stands for the inner cell mass, that actually develop into the human body. Now if you take this ICM or inner cell mass, it will give rise to embryonic stem cells. So this is clear now, right, that this embryonic stem cell or ICM is not the part of the outer cell mass of the blastocyst. So these embryonic stem cells are pluripotent in nature, not the totipotent ones. So this is the second feature of these embryonic stem cells, that these are pluripotent stem cells. Okay. And next, so we can say that these embryonic stem cells are pluripotent, derived from the inner cell mass of blastocyst, that is the early stage embryo. And these ECAs, these are actually able to differentiate into all derivatives of the 3 primary germ layers. So can anyone say what are 3 primary germ layers?
Ectoderm, mesoderm, endoderm.
Good. So it can differentiate into all derivatives of these 3 primary germ layers. That includes more than 220 cell types in adult body. And because of their pluripotency, these embryonic stem cells have broad applications, not only in basic research but also in drug discovery, cell therapy I have mentioned. On January 23rd, 2009, phase 1 clinical trials was led by Garin for transplantation of oligodendrites derived from human embryonic stem cells into spinal cord injured individuals, that received approval from FDA, marking it the world's first human embryonic stem cell trial. Okay, so you can use these stem cells for different purpose. The next, this is the another property of stem cells, it can renew themselves, obviously that's why they are known as stem cells. Next type of stem cells is the induced pluripotent stem cell or IPS. Now these IPS or induced pluripotent stem cells that do not occur naturally, because getting its name, the induced pluripotent stem cell, that means the pluripotency of a particular pluripotency is induced in a particular cell, right? So they are generated in culture from somatic cells through ectopic co-expression of defined pluripotency factors. We will talk about these pluripotency factors later. So induced pluripotent stem cells that can self-renew indefinitely in culture and differentiate into all specialized cells. So obviously I have mentioned that generated from reprogrammed by reprogramming somatic cells. Well, now this includes the pluripotent stem cells are artificial stem cells produced from somatic cells through co-expression of defined pluripotency associated factors. Like embryonic stem cells, they can typically proliferate and self-renew indefinitely in vitro and differentiate into derivatives of all 3 primary germ layers, that is ectoderm, endoderm and mesoderm, as well as germ cells that give rise to the gametes. However, according to the strictest definition, genuine or bona fide IPSs could develop into an entire embryo in conjunction with extraembryonic membranes. Since the full pluripotency of induced pluripotent stem cells have been demonstrated by several studies through the most stringent test of pluripotency, that is the tetraploid complementation. There is a test which actually check the pluripotency of a cell, which is known as the tetraploid complementation. It actually used to test whether a particular stem cell or the cell is having this induced pluripotency or not. Well, so the another property obviously include the pluripotency in nature. So we can say that these induced pluripotent stem cells, the first generated iPSC was by Yamanaka. It was in Japan in 2006. The induced pluripotent stem cell first introduced, and I have talked about these factors or pluripotency associated factors. What are they? They are different gene product. They are OCT3 and 4, SOX2, c-MYC and KLF4. There are 4 gene products which are actually responsible for inducing pluripotency in normal somatic cells. Well, the next type of stem cell is adult stem cells. So, what are these adult stem cells? Basically, these adult stem cells are you can say it as tissue stem cells also. They can come from different parts of the adult body. They are specific to a certain kind of tissues in the body. For instance, liver stem cells can regenerate liver tissues, and muscle stem cells can regenerate muscle fibers. But adult stem cells are limited to only becoming more of their specialized tissues. Liver stem cells cannot make a new muscle fiber, nor can muscle stem cells can make new liver tissues. So, a person's body contains stem cells throughout their life. The body can use these stem cells whenever it needs them. So, also called tissue specific or somatic stem cells. Adult stem cells exist throughout the body from the time an embryo develops, and these cells are in a non-specific state because obviously they differentiate into only a special kind of cell, so they are in the non-specific state, but they are more specialized than the embryonic stem cells. They remain in this state until the body needs them for specific purpose, say skin or muscle cells, etc. Now, in our body, day-to-day living means the body is constantly renewing its tissues. In some parts of the body, such as the gut and bone marrow, the stem cells regularly divide to produce new body tissues for its maintenance and repair. Now, if you talk about these adult stem cells, they can be the brain, the bone marrow, blood and blood vessels, skeletal muscles, etc. However, the stem cells can be difficult to find, so they can stay non-dividing and non-specific for years until the body actually calls them for repair or to grow new tissues, etc. Though they are specialized, these adult stem cells have the it can actually differentiate into one special kind of tissue or one special kind of cell, but they have these adult stem cells have the property by which they can divide or self-renew themselves for a long time, though this is not indefinitely but for a long time. Okay, so this is the different types of the stem cells, the basic types of the stem cells. Now, there are different adult stem cells. We will talk about them: mesenchymal stem cells, neuronal stem cells. We will talk about it. Well, so this is basically the structure of pluripotency or the say the stemness property. So, if you see, this is this model actually we generally use this or tell this as the Waddington's epigenetic landscape. During the study of epigenetics, we generally show this model. This is Waddington's epigenetic landscape model, which actually shows the pluripotent stem cells can be differentiated into various somatic lineages, not only in response to extrinsic cues in vitro but also during development. If you see the picture, the differentiation of the pluripotent stem cells during the normal development, it will give rise to at the end the lineage at the end, that is the lineage conversion, it will give rise at the end it will give more specialized cell. Next, it can be undergo the lineage conversion. The one kind of cell will give rise to another one, and the reprogramming will just revert it back. The more specialized cell will be induced with pluripotency. That is actually we do in case of induced somatic stem cells. So, what happens that recent technologies with tissue specific transcription factors enable this conversion of lineage committed cells to another fate. A small set of reprogramming factors also reverts these differentiated cells to pluripotency, adapted with permission from Waddington's. So, this is the nature, or this is the Waddington's model. So, it tells that there are experiments. The first one, the differentiation, which is during the normal development, that actually occurs naturally in our body, but the lineage conversion and this reprogramming, that is the induction of pluripotency, that actually scientists have done by introducing new factors that actually give rise to the somatic cells to become a pluripotent one. So, if you see the time frame, actually the study of these stem cells started from 1962, and I have mentioned the induced pluripotent stem cell was first introduced in 2006 in Japan by Yamanaka. So what are the key concepts that actually driven to the discovery of these iPSCs, induced pluripotent stem cells? So the oocyte mediated reprogramming. If you see, the memory of somatic cell nuclei can be erased by injection into enucleated oocyte. The generation of clone feeding tadpoles by nuclear transfer, which is achieved in 1962, the first one. Okay, the second one is the transcription factor that induce the conversion of lineage. We have talked about in the previous slide, we have talked about this lineage conversion. So it was done in after 1962, where actually these transcription factors that induce conversion of lineage committed cell fate. Lineage instructive transcription factors can change somatic cell fate to a destination state beyond germ layers. So this is the transdifferentiation. In some cases, such cell fate conversion can be referred to as transdifferentiation. And the third one is the induction of pluripotency, where we are using the transcription factors, induction of pluripotency by defined factors. I have mentioned there are OCT3, OCT4, SOX2, TLF4, etc. Different transcription factors or pluripotency associated factors. The combined concept of oocyte mediated reprogramming and transcription factor induced cell fate conversion, that actually allowed us to discover this iPSCs technology. So this is basically the brief history, which actually started from 1962, and ultimately scientists were successful to make it in 2006. Well, the question comes, why these iPSCs are important? Because we are talking about these induced pluripotent stem cells, or to introduce this pluripotency to somatic cells. Why we are doing this? Because again the same points will come, that this induced pluripotent stem cells will help us obviously for basic research, to research on toxicology, for drug discovery. If you can use them, you can model different diseases, different disease conditions, and obviously cell therapy, which is the most important. You can induce different pluripotency to somatic cells and use those induced pluripotent stem cells to cure different diseases. As I have mentioned, you can cure Parkinson, Alzheimer disease, diabetes, etc. So it has immense use in the medical science. So you can say that these iPSCs are important. Both wild type and disease specific pluripotent cells to be derived from accessible tissue sources, these iPSCs. So you can say that this iPSC cell research allows this both wild type and disease specific pluripotent cells to be derived from accessible tissue sources. So this is the basic research one. This cell will help researchers to create genetic models for disease, that is the disease modeling. Second one is to understand molecular controls influencing cell development. And these iPS cells hold the promise of reducing drug development time, improve the drug safety, and also bring us closer to personalized medicine and targeted therapies. So I talked about those regenerative medicines, right? So personalized medicines, targeted therapies, we can use induced pluripotent stem cells. Well, so how to make these pluripotent stem cells, how that can be generated? Now generation, and if you see, there are various methods and approaches that can be used to convert somatic stem cells into iPSCs or induced pluripotent stem cell. So there are integrative methods, non-integrative methods. In the integrative methods, such as integrative viruses and vectors, that actually provide the highest reprogramming efficiency but the lowest safety. So there are integrative methods. In contrast, there are non-integrative approaches also, where the use of small molecules and microRNA tends to have a less reprogramming efficiency. Notably, episomal vectors, which do not integrate with the host cell's genome, appear to provide both a high efficiency of induced pluripotent stem cell generation and also sufficient degree of safety. Although all the illustrated approaches could potentially be used to produce induced pluripotent stem cells for applications such as basic research, drug screening, disease modeling, genomic integration, should be avoided for generation of clinical grade iPSCs. So obviously this integrative methods is not actually wanted if you want to make some induced pluripotent stem cells for these clinical uses. And because of this immortality and immense differentiation potential, these iPSCs have all the potential biomedical applications of embryonic stem cells that can be used to model pluripotency and multi-lineage differentiation in vitro, screen and discover new drugs, obviously, and establish disease models in a dish. So how this actually, okay, before going into details about how these induced pluripotent stem cells are generated, there are obviously two types of that I have mentioned, that two type of factors. If you go for integrative system, you will use retroviral, lentiviral, inducible lentiviral, and for non-integrative approaches you can use non-integrating viral vectors like Sendai virus, adenovirus, etc. Okay, so what are the different, this is different actually the types or the methods by which you can introduce reprogramming factors in the somatic cells. So how actually otherwise you can use that by transgenes, recombinant proteins, synthetic mRNAs, etc. So what actually people do, they isolate they actually isolate the source cells, culture them, and next so the source cells are cultured for use as the host cells for the delivery of reprogramming proteins. So in the second stage actually they use these cultured source cells for transfection with 4 factors that I have already mentioned. These 4 factors are the pluripotency associated factors. Because Yamanaka first introduced us with these induced pluripotent stem cells, these factors are known as Yamanaka's cocktail. So now these cultured cells, they are transfected with these 4 factors from Yamanaka's cocktail and incubated on feeder layers. What are the feeder layers? We will talk about that later. Feeder layers that provide the nourishment to host cells, and these are responsible for the formation of extracellular matrix under suitable conditions of medium. Now 2 types of method can be used for the delivery of the reprogramming factors. I have already mentioned you can use for integrative method or non-integrative method. Now I've also written over here that if you use the integrative methods, you can go for retroviral, lentiviral or inducible lentiviral, and if you go for integration free system, non-integrative, you can go with viral vectors, plasmid DNA recombinant protein or synthetic mRNA. And obviously non-integrative method is much more acceptable because the induction will be high, and second it will be safe for clinical use. And after the formation of these iPSCs, they are characterized by different morphological and physicochemical analysis, which is followed by the expansion of iPSCs. So this is the 3 basic steps of generating these induced pluripotent stem cells from the more specialized somatic cells. Now this is basically the feeder layer. The feeder layers or feeder free layers actually depending on different media you are using, it will actually help the cells to grow more perfectly, to become more pluripotent. So this media actually plays a very important role to make these somatic cells a pluripotent one. If you can see this picture, you will see that the adult somatic stem cells, they are introduced with OCT4, SOX2, EKL4 and MEK genes, these 4 factors. Now what is the function of this OCT3 and 4, the SOX2, okay, and this KLF4 or the MEK. So what are the functions of these 4 factors which actually helps us to induce the pluripotency? So basically these 4 factors actually reverse the unipotency state into a pluripotency state. How? The question comes, how? Now somatic cell programming is initiated by changes in the transcriptome and chromatin structure of differentiated state into that of a pluripotent like state. The ability of reprogramming transcription factors to bind to the pluripotency associated recognition sequence in somatic cells is mostly modulated by the changes in chromatin structure influenced by DNA methylation, histone modification and ATP dependent chromatin remodeling. And the reprogramming transcription factors continuously bind together to form an interconnected autoregulatory circuit, triggering their own core promoter genes and cooperating with other pluripotency associated genes. Now the interconnected autoregulatory loop, all these portions, this interconnected autoregulatory loop suggests that OCT4 and SOX2 plays a key role in the maintenance of pluripotency and in early embryo precursor cells respectively. In contrast, NANOG is another factor, NANOG, that actually plays a paramount role for mammalian development and growth and obviously differentiation of blastocyst in the pre-implementation embryo. It was reported that 2 transcriptional waves are elicited when pluripotency is induced. What are them? So those are, in the first transcriptional wave, c-Myc binds to a large region of somatic genome with methylated H3K4Me2 and H3K4Me3. The histone 3, the lysine 4 of histone 3 is methylated with 2 methyl group, and the lysine 4 of histone 3 is methylated 3 methyl group. So these 2 different methylation which marks the opening of the chromatin, and it allows the OCT4 and SOX2 to have access to the necessary genes for reprogramming and to the enhancer and the promoters of genes that determine the somatic identity of the cells. Now this is followed by the silencing of somatic related genes expression, which includes mesenchymal genes such as ZEB1, ZEB2, surface markers. Now c-Myc is a well-known oncogene that seems to be directly associated with the cycle regulation of cell proliferation and biosynthetic pathways. KLF4 plays contradicting role in both phases, the first one and the second. First, by restraining differentiated genes in the first phase as it binds and activates epithelial genes including E-cadherin. Secondly, by accelerating the essential endogenous OCT4 and SOX2 expression in the second phase, which establishes the autoregulatory loop that maintains the pluripotent state. And it is widely accepted that KLF4 naturally acts in pluripotent cells by controlling cellular processes such as development, proliferation, differentiation, and apoptosis. Now this KLF4 has a potent interaction with this OCT4 and SOX2 to activate a group of transcription factors such as NANOG, ESRRB, KLF2, ZEP42 and signaling pathway regulators such as STAT3. Now this core network between numerous pluripotency transcription genes and signaling cues provides the stability to the pluripotent gene expression program. So this is basically maybe a bit hard for you. This is basically the pathway or why these transcription factors or why the 4 components of these Yamanaka's cocktails are necessary to be introduced inside the somatic stem cells to switch off the somatic expressing genes or somatic state maintaining genes and to switch on to transcribe those genes which are related to initiating pluripotency or maintaining pluripotency in a particular cell. Once these pluripotency related genes are activated inside these somatic cells, now the somatic cells are no longer somatic cells, they will become induced pluripotent stem cells. Okay, so this is how these induced pluripotent stem cells are generated. In our next class, we will talk about more about these induced pluripotent stem cells, how we can use them, and also about some special kind of adult stem cells. There are mesenchymal stem cells, neuronal stem cells. We will talk about those stem cells in our next class, and also we will talk about how these stem cells can be used in clinical biology, and also maybe there will be a short different websites servers we can use. I will show you that how you can check whether a particular cell has stemness property or not. So how we will check the stemness property? We will check that whether they are expressing particular genes they are expressing particular proteins or not, which are responsible for maintaining the pluripotency. So if you see, if you tell a particular cell to be the stem cell, you have to, if you want to check the stemness of a particular cell, you will check those factors. If those factors which are associated with a particular potency of a stem cell, if those factors are expressed, you can say that okay, my particular cell type has stemness property. So we will discuss about it in our next class. Okay.